Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, creating a community where Black and queer folks are fearless in thought and curious at heart. I'm one of your hosts, Damon, and today, Jordan, Tony, and I are discussing who we are at our core. What core principles define who we are today? What parts of our identity are we most comfortable with versus not? This is We Wear the Mask. Okay.
Ooh. Heavy.
You look a little heavy, baby.
Quite heavy.
But yeah, so we're gonna kick off. It's Black History Month.
Did he say you look heavy?
No, I let it roll off. I let it roll off.
That's what the songwriter said.
We're gonna cover that in our core values.
But starting off with Black History Month, we're gonna do a little trivia. Okay. I know y'all are terrible at trivia, so we're gonna keep it
terrible.
easy. What I think should be easy, and it's gonna all be themed on MLK.
Oh God.
Okay.
If anything, if you don't know MLK trivia, child, I'm really getting y'all Black History books next year
We're
for
gonna have to cut
Christmas.
this out the episode.
Y'all about to embarrass us. Okay. So, what college did Martin Luther King attend? Was it A, Clark Atlanta, B, Morris Brown, C, Morehouse College, or D, Savannah State University? Tony.
You want to say it on three? Oh.
Tony's thinking.
Oh, you don't know. Sorry.
Pathetic.
Do you know it?
Yeah.
I actually don't know this off the top of my head, but I want to say Clark Atlanta for some reason. But Savannah sounds like more accurate to me because I always associate Martin Luther King with
Savannah?
Savannah.
What?
It's Morehouse.
It's
Morehouse.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Ooh. The Morehouse girls are not gonna like
The
that.
Morehouse girls are gonna be sick.
I actually did it to spite them.
They got that one alum.
Okay, so what famous?
One alone.
Not one.
The one claim to fame.
Y'all are. I'm not doing this with y'all. What famous boycott did MLK help orchestrate? The Atlanta bus boycott, the Montgomery bus boycott, the Nashville boycott, or the Jacksonville boycott? Jordan.
Montgomery.
Tony.
Montgomery. Yeah.
Are you
Montgomery.
I think he's pulling what you normally pull.
Montgomery.
I'm shocked you ain't say E, Savannah.
Because I associate Martin Luther King with Savannah.
Good man, Savannah.
That's a good
Say,
man.
good man, Savannah.
What church was he the co-pastor of? Trinity Church, All Saints Church, Ebenezer Baptist Church, St. Paul's Church? Tony.
Ebenezer.
Jordan.
Ebenezer sound like something that he was a part of.
Bonus question. Who's currently the pastor of that church?
Of Ebenezer Baptist?
Ebenezer Baptist.
Ebenezer
Baptist.
Where is it?
Atlanta.
It's in Atlanta. Oh, I don't know. Oh, actually, it's Giselle Bryant's husband.
No.
Is it
that's the
T.D.
only-
Jakes?
It is Senator Raphael Warnock.
I only knew one Atlanta pastor, and that was Jamal Bryant.
You should call this Atlanta trivia.
Y'all are embarrassing. What is the March on Washington's full name? The March on Washington for Civil Rights, the March on Washington for Equality and Unity, the March on Washington to End Segregation, or the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom?
You were there, right?
In the 60s?
The original one?
Oh, sorry. Please cut this out.
I was there.
In
But
the-
not the original, the
No.
recent march on Washington.
I went to the Million Man March.
Yeah,
That is different.
that's what
Oh,
I-
you're talking about the
that's-
one when you were a baby.
That's the one.
was-
That's what I meant.
Yes.
I'm sorry. This one happened in the 60s.
I was not
though.
there in 1960, whatever year it was.
Oh,
Well,
this one was about, obviously, what was the third thing you said?
Segregation.
I think it was segregation,
Tony.
Well, civil rights and segregation go hand in hand.
period.
So there's civil rights on there
Mm-hmm.
and there's segregation, but I know that back then the word was really segregation.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go with that one. But the March on Washington for Civil Rights was my initial guess.
Okay,
So-
you want to put in your
I'm gonna go with my
plan B.
initial. I'm gonna go with your gut.
I think.
My gut. The March on Washington for Civil Rights.
Did y'all take any African American history classes?
Yeah, I actually went to an African enrichment.
And didn't pay attention to shit.
I did.
It was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
For jobs and freedom.
Yes, the March on Washington was like an economic march about people not having work.
I was about to ask a follow-up question, but I don't want to look any more silly than I am right now. So
Let's just move on.
Well, you can't look anymore. You can't possibly look any more silly.
Which of the following is not a famous MLK quote? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. Nobody's free until everybody's free. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools.
I was going to say B.
Yeah, I was going to say the second one, the second option as well.
Out of a mountain of despair.
Of a mountain of despair.
A stone of hope.
A stone of hope. No, that sounds like something he might say.
Because the mountaintop.
That last one, did he say fools like that in a speech?
You tell me.
No.
That feels uncharacteristic to
Okay.
call people fools. But I still want to go with B, though, because that feels a little bit more... I mean, it's pretty poetic. I can see Martin
Right,
doing
because, you
that.
know, he had a way with his words.
Wait, can you say all the options again?
Okay. A. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. B. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. C. Nobody's free until everybody's free. D. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools.
Oh, I see what you did here. This is a trick question. It is C, because there is a different word that he used in that quote. So that's my final answer.
And what's your answer?
I'm going to go with B just so that we can have some...
A greater chance.
One of us can get it right.
What if one of you got it right but for the wrong reason?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Explain.
So it's C,
I know.
but it's C because it's a Fannie Lou Hamer quote, not because it's a mischaracterized
See, I thought they
MLK quote.
said nobody's free until we all are free.
That's not what I was doing, baby.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, a win is a win.
a win is a win in my book.
Last one. Child. MLK famously improvised one of the most well-known parts of the I Have a Dream speech. When one of the people sitting on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial yelled, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." And then he starts, "And even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream." He goes through the whole thing to the free at last, thank God Almighty. All improvised.
Oh.
Who was the person sitting on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial that yelled at him to tell him about the dream?
Oh,
Was it
I know who
A,
it was.
Mahalia Jackson, mother of gospel music? B, our auntie Bayard Rustin, who organized the march? C, John Lewis, who was the head of SNCC at the time? Or Whitney Young from the National Urban League?
Was it one of the girls or one of the girls? Because, you know, both were up there. I'm going to say John Lewis.
Okay.
I'm going to say Bayard Rustin.
Mahalia Jackson.
I knew
Oh,
it.
okay.
Girls, one of the girls.
I was close.
One of the girls.
How are you close? Y'all are absolutely
That is hilarious.
getting Black History books next year.
I feel like I won.
You did get one right by mistake.
No, I got several correct. I got the first and second question right.
Natalie, roll the tapes back.
I
Several.
got several right.
Oh my God. I'm surrounded by idiots. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about ourselves, something y'all know more about.
Oh yeah, I'm fluent in that topic.
Ooh, child. All right, now it's time to let my hair down. Get my thinking cap off. I don't think it was. The mom would say it wasn't on. To
It was
begin with.
Happy Black History Month to
I know. Happy
those
Black
of you that
History Month.
paid attention to anything.
All right, so ladies, as Damon mentioned at the top of the episode, we're going to be doing a little bit of introspection and getting more to self and talking about some of our core principles, some of the things that guide us in our life, and a lot about taking off that mask that we all sometimes wear. And so let's start with talking about what are some of the core or guiding principles that we have. And I want us to highlight one that maybe we were taught as a child growing up, maybe we heard from a family member, and then one that we've sort of defined for ourselves as an adult and kind of adapted for our North Star or source of truth. So who would like to start? Damon?
Sure.
Since
I'll
you've
give y'all
been the source of truth so far.
I would say as a child, my dad, or like my family generally always instilled that like living in a way that only benefits me isn't that valuable. For me, a lot of what I do at work, in my friendships, in my personal life is kind of about community and how I can bring people along with me. And it's something that like my parents, they grew up on the west side of Chicago. They like adopted a bunch of us. Like they did things in life that was about, okay, I got an education or I got a good amount of work or whatever it is. And how can I help other people around me? How can I help people in my community? How can I be in some way of service, not just to myself?
Right.
And that's something that I've taken a lot into like my career, just because that's a place where a lot of times we can really just focus on ourselves and where can I get, how high up the ladder can I climb? And I think for me, instilling the fact that I can bring people along on the entire journey has been kind of a guiding light for me, and not thinking purely that like I have to get to this level and then I can help. Where it's really just about like, this is what I have now. This is the knowledge that I have, and how can I share it with as many people as possible? Because to me, it's not some competition. What's for me is for me.
Yeah.
And then what is for everyone else and what I can share with them to help them, I think is really valuable.
Yeah.
The thing that I've fine-tuned as an adult and really taken in personally is the concept of freedom. In all aspects of life. I wrote down a quote because I had a lot of time apparently to write quotes down today. But one of Alec Menon, they're an author, a trans activist, and one of my favorite people. They said one of the most tragic things about humanity is that we keep mistaking a prison for another home. We keep saying that this is freedom, but it's really just another leash. What we don't realize is that true freedom is going to be uncomfortable because when we are conditioned into the perpetual state of unfreedom, it calcifies so that people think what is natural and what reality is actually a prison. And what I'm saying is the only gender rule is that there are no rules, and that man and woman only mean what you need them to mean for you personally. People hear that as a threat, not as an invitation because of trauma, because they are afraid of the possibility that they've been taught that the only way they can get love, receive love, and to be is by being someone else's fantasy of who they should be.
That definitely tracks for you.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I heard it, and I was just like, right there, they're speaking specifically to the concept of gender and that binary. But I think you can take that thinking into every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Like so often we are taught that love has to be this way. Familiar relationships have to be this way. How you work and how you advance in your career has to be a certain type of way. And I think having the propensity to think freely and to think personally about how I want to interact and go into each of those spaces is something that is of great value to me as an adult. And it's not just rebellion for the sake of it. It's rebellion for the quest of my truth. And that is something that I find priceless. And like, if whatever people can find to be their freedom, like I think that's something that I value more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things in that quote, I think it said in the beginning, was people mistaking prison for another home. Child.
Yeah. That landed.
It did.
For
I
me
was
as well.
like, because when you sit back and think about that, it's talking about the realities in which people see for themselves and thinking that is home, and in
Or this is going
actuality
to make me happy, or
Yeah.
this is going to
Right.
complete me. And then you get there and you realize that you're still keeping the charade up, or still
Right.
having to sacrifice things to have that happiness
yeah.
in your life.
Yeah, like you're constantly in search for the next thing that you've been told you should have,
Right.
instead of looking inward and saying, what are the things of value to me that like I want to carry, that I want to find, that offer me joy in my life.
Yeah.
Right. What about you,
love
Jordan?
I think growing up between my mother and my father, peacefulness was a value that was always communicated explicitly to me. I was constantly sort of like checked on like my volume, like keeping things like down, like de-escalating confrontation, delegating confrontation. Like I know people have moms that say like, if you get your ass beat, you better not come home. You better. I was not. I did not grow up in that household. My mom told me that when I
talk them
get
down.
no, when my mom told me that when I got hit to tell a teacher. And so my dad also had an approach to life where it was just like, mind your business and don't share any of your business and keep things very like top level and harmonious.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took that into my adult life, where I just sort of prioritized harmony. Probably wasn't the most helpful thing in all of my relationships, but it's definitely something that was instilled with me. But I still keep parts of it. I do think is some value in it, with some minor adjustments now that I've grown older. I think one of the values that I developed in adult life would be compassion. I think before like moving out of home and going to college and then moving into New York, I think that I took things a lot more personally when things happened to me, or people did things to me. I just assumed that this was just a result of bad behavior, and I didn't really think anything else of it. And I think as I've grown older and I've had my own life experiences, I realized that everyone's struggling. I'm not even going to say so many people. Everyone is struggling with something.
Yeah.
And so taking a moment to understand why people do things and what it could be coming from, and having some patience for people, especially people that I care about and people that I love, is something that came a little bit later in life. Especially now being in this podcast, like just knowing that no matter what someone's life looks like on the outside, that they're more than likely dealing with something. And the way that they act, the way that they behave, the way that they respond to the world is a direct relation to, whatever personal lived experiences they had. So just being like kinder to people, and understanding that, all bad behaviors can come from a very fragile and hurt place. So.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's more of a couple of guiding principles that I have. And when I think about when I was growing up, my grandmother Geneva would always tell either my Aunt Crystal or my father or my Uncle Terrence, when they were leaving the house to go hang out for the evening or what have you, her last words before they went out would always be, "Remember who you are." And that stuck with me. And then as I had gotten older and started going out into the world, it started being said to me. And my Aunt Crystal would say it to me, my grandmother would say it to me. And when I think about what that means, it's like when you're out in the world and navigating whatever it is, the streets, in whatever capacity that may be, you always have to be mindful of who you are and not letting people take you out of your character. Always remembering, if the person you are, if you are a person who's kind, if you are a person who's loving and caring, if you are a person who is patient, remember those things when you're out, because there's so many variables that come in and out of your space that you can't control all the time, but you have to remember what you're in control of, and that is your reactions to
how you choose to show up.
Right, how you choose to show up. And so that sticks with me whenever I am leaving the house, and whether that be for work or whether that be on a date, or whether that be to hang out with my girls, or go out and party or what have you. So that's something that always I keep with me very close, and I think about that, and it kind of centers me when I have those moments of frustration when I'm out dealing with the elements.
So would you say like self-awareness would be like the value, like a guiding principle?
I feel like, definitely self-awareness, and having a high degree of emotional intelligence, and working on that to be able to navigate spaces that are no longer in my control. So when I step out of my home, then I am subjected to
The world.
Okay.
And that leads me to my second thing, which is more of as an adult, I've defined that for myself is, when my gut tells me it's time to move on, listen to it. And that means a lot of different things for me. It means when I was younger, I used to hang out in certain spaces, and as I got older and those spaces were no longer sparking joy, I would be like, this is no longer fun, and I'm going to choose to not engage with this space anymore. And I would actively tell my friends, like, you guys can still do this thing, but I'm not participating moving forward. And whether it's a job, and the time has come to
Know when to
the time
leave.
is always here.
Know when to leave.
To leave. And so
The
that
party,
it's
the
kind of, you can
relationship,
sum it up
the job.
to that too, like knowing when to leave, when to say when.
Yeah.
You know, when or even if it's just when the fun is at capacity, like Damon says a lot. So knowing when it's time to just figure out what my exit route and my escape strategy is. And then lastly, like Damon made me think about being in service to others, and I feel like I get a lot out of pouring into other people, being a cheerleader for other people. And it made me also think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Howard girls, wasn't truth and service like a Howard
Veritas at Utilitas.
Yeah, and so that
I don't know what Damon just said.
It was
that
truth and
a-
service in Latin. It's like
Oh, it
all
was a
the
different
universities.
language. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just like,
Did you go to Howard too?
no, not that Howard. I went to the English speaking Howard.
Oh my! It's literally on like everything.
it made me think of truth and service and being in service of others and bringing everybody along for the ride. So, yes, we are having a time today. So, but I want to bring us to our next question, which is we have this intersectional experience of being both Black and queer. And I want to know from you guys and also myself, like which part of our identity are we most comfortable with versus less comfortable with, and why? Jordan, you want to start?
Yeah. I think between my Blackness and my queerness, I'm more comfortable in my Blackness. I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, majority Black. I learned Swahili when I was younger. I don't remember much of it, so don't quiz me.
You learned Swahili, but Latin.
Give us the Kwanzaa principles.
Latin wasn't in the first of yes. You need me to rattle them off?
Go ahead.
You know what? We don't have time for that. I'm gonna do that, in the comments.
But you
But
had time to do the research. No, I believe you know them.
But yeah, and obviously went to a HBCU, so I feel very comfortable and confident in my Blackness. I feel like I've been around a lot of safe spaces that encourage, promote, and celebrate Blackness, and so I kind of grew up being comfortable with that. I'm also cognizant of the way that I show up in the world, and thankfully I haven't personally experienced any like violent backlash on behalf of my race. And so my personal experience with my Blackness has been quite comfortable. I think that queerness has been less comfortable. For starters, I hid that I was queer for 20 years of my life. And it's because I didn't feel safe. And even when I did come out, I felt like safe spaces were scarce. And because of that, I had less time to really explore and really come to terms with it. It took a longer time to come to terms with my sexuality. We still unpack different parts of our queerness on this podcast every week. And so that's the area that I think is obviously benefiting from a lot of growth still to this day.
Yeah. I have the kind of a similar answer to Jordan, so I'm not going to delve too deep into that. But I remember a couple years ago, 2020, when there was the whole Black Lives Matter moment that was really big. And I was in the New York City Gay Men's Chorus at the time. And I didn't like some things about their response. And I was explaining to them the difference between my experience with the visible part of my minority status versus the less visible part of it. Because let's assume people will not immediately look at me and go, gay. But like, there's no doubt that people will look at me and go, Black. And I think that having one, even if people don't pour into you, and I've had the amazing experience of having my Blackness poured into me as far as love, and I think a very positive light. But even if they didn't, to your point, I would have had 34 years to sort it out on my own, even if those experiences were negative, and understand how to deal with that. Whereas the queer part was hidden for a very long time. And that is the thing that I think we're still understanding that journey. I think a thing we've talked about previously here is the AIDS crisis wiped out a whole generation of queer elders.
Yeah.
So there isn't as much of a connection or as large of a pool of queer elders that I think people like us can kind of look to and lead on and so on.
Yeah.
And I think that those combination of things, the fact that it's something you can hide, then you can't necessarily immediately find a mentor or someone that can guide you in some way, makes that, for me at least, and similarly to Jordan, like the harder thing to kind of figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, when it comes to my blackness and my queerness, I've always loved being black, but I think that as time has gone on for me and as I've gotten older, I've really come to appreciate and know how special it is to be black. Our culture is so rich, and I really enjoy the isms that come along with being black. It's like I love seeing on social media those different posts that it's kind of like a show me you're black without telling me you're black kind of thing, where there are just things that we say that are just like ours.
Everybody
have
got the same mama.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it's like our own spoken language that you know what this means. You know, when we say ripping and running, and we have like our
Hooting
kind of
and hollering.
hooting and hollering, so many things that are just like, uniquely black.
Yeah.
That is fun. It's exciting, and you see how many other cultures try to appropriate or try to adapt, and black culture is cool. Like I think people want to be us without having, or people want to have the black experience without having the black skin. And that's a whole nother topic, but like, that's something that I've just come to realize in the world. And then when it comes to like the queer part, like, it's similar to you guys, where it took longer to get comfortable with that because of feeling, discriminated against, or not wanting to be teased about it, or feeling like an outcast, being made to feel like who I am is wrong. And now I feel like being both black and queer is like my superpower. It's like being a unicorn out in the world, having both of these like this intersectionality that exists. I thank God that I'm gay because
I wouldn't want it any other way.
I feel like I've the way I navigate life. We have to overcome so much to exist in this world, and I think we have to adapt and get to where we're going quicker and know how to navigate that a lot sooner than others do. And so, just by virtue of that, I feel like it's helped me in all facets of my life. And so, be a black queer unicorn in the world.
Don't be a drag, just be a queen. That's what the songwriter said.
All right. So the way that I would love to end this episode is just a moment of reflection on the podcast itself. So obviously through Surface Level, our lived experiences are on public display, for better or for worse. How has this experiment amplified personal truths you've previously ignored? Damon, let's start with you.
I've really learned that grace is not my strong suit.
Oh.
Yeah, no. And for a long time I thought it was, because I'm very good at clearly understanding and being able to see why people do or don't make bad decisions or good decisions. But when they're bad, or relatively bad, because everything's relative, I'm not the best at giving them the space to fuck up. I'm very good at accountability. But not so much grace. And I think like even with like me and Jordan's situation, like a lot of it was about me wanting to hold him accountable for things I was upset about, but not giving grace and understanding like where he was in his life and how he thought about things and why we crossed wires on some things. And I think what I've learned through doing this is that the balance of grace and accountability is the thing that genuine or like actually moves us forward, or like moves people forward in friendships, in relationships, in just hearing us talk. That combination, I think, is the thing that I'm trying to internalize a bit more. And it was something that as overdoing this and like hearing feedback and just like thinking more deeply about how I move through the world has been really clear to me.
Yeah.
Tony?
So the podcast experience for me has been like holding up a very large mirror and removing the makeup to reveal the bare naked truth.
Removing that mask.
And so removing the mask, Jordan, you know what? It's as if we've known each other a very long time.
I know, right?
And so I want to talk about removing the mask. I found this thing it was a YouTube clip and it had some notes in it. A random creator. I don't know the person's name, but it talked about the mask that we wear. And so it said, wearing a mask is about controlling the perceptions others have of you. The mask keeps you in and others out. Masks make us lonely because we are not only keeping out vulnerability, but also connection. Connection is the most important ingredient to healing our shame wounds because shame thrives in secrecy. When we take our masks off, the shame we are wearing the mask to prevent us from feeling melts away. It's ironic because we are wearing the mask to keep out shame, but it's the very thing keeping us stuck in our shame. And lastly, when you wear a mask, you are sending the message to your mind that you are protected, but you are sending the message to your heart that there is something to hide. Ooh.
Yeah. I love when you react to yourself.
Is this if you read it for the first time? Is this if you ready
for the first time?
When I read that, I was like, that's it. That's what
Yeah.
this conversation is about. And that's what wearing that mask is and what that protection feels like for us and what we think we're doing for ourselves and how it's also harmful for ourselves. And so with doing the podcast experience, I feel that, you know, some parts of that bare naked truth I've liked, and others I've gotten to identify the flaws that I have and that I want to work on, which has been really powerful. But I've also been able to, through this experience, say the things out loud that used to just be the things in my head that I would be hiding. And that to me has been finding a level of freedom that I've spoken about, that I hope my hope for others to have in this world is that level of freedom that I've gotten to attain. And a different thing too, and I feel like this would be the same for you guys, is getting real-time feedback from people.
Y'all know I don't talk to these people. And people be talking to me, I'll be like, okay.
And whether it be like strangers or friends,
Yeah.
that didn't exist prior to the podcast. And so I've gotten feedback from friends and from just conversations that I've had with people that allow me to see more of myself and realize like, and kind of examine how I feel about myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jordan.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with the mirror thing. I've been saying this since like season one, but
two AKAs in here.
I think
Just staring in the mirror.
but I think that I've said this before, but the podcast is extremely cathartic. I think that prior to the podcast, I was never doing this much self-reflection. We do not come into the studio and just, say the first thing that comes to mind. We actually take a moment to develop these questions and figure out how do we truly feel about these topics and what do we truly think. And I think that level of reflection in my past, I had only experienced in therapy. And so it's been an incredible learning experience. And if you're looking to do a podcast, do it. Like, I think that it's really, really helpful. I've learned some things that I didn't love about myself. I learned that I, have participated in the amplification of fat phobia. I've learned about my unconscious bias, or maybe my conscious bias against cis straight Black men based on hurtful experiences that I may have had in childhood. I've learned a lot of things that I didn't like about myself through having these conversations, and it's a hell of an experience to share that, and then to have one or the both of you sort of challenge those things and us have those conversations in real time. But I think it's really beneficial. I've learned the power of your words. we are adults now. You no longer get to just say whatever the fuck you want without taking into consideration the people you may be harming with your words. And I think that feeling has intensified being on a podcast. And I think that I just take more care in general with the word choices that I have. And so the podcast has just been like a really beautiful experience. And I'm happy that we do get the real-time feedback from people on social media or in our reviews or in our DMs. It's not always fun to hear about yourself in that way from somebody who you may not know well, but incredibly reflective. And I don't think that had I not had this podcast that I would be doing half as much of the reflection that we do here.
Yeah, definitely the experience has escalated the growth journey
Yeah.
like tremendously. I don't even know who I was before talking about these things out loud
At
and
all.
having the space to really just put it out there and not necessarily put it out there for feedback from anyone per se.
No.
Because that was never our intention or goal. It's like
Right.
to get a bunch of notes back from folks. It was more about us sitting down and having conversations and with each other.
Yeah. And sharing where we are present day.
Yeah.
Right.
On these topics, which change, which
Exactly.
I
We
love when
revisit some.
I love when we revisit conversations and we say, okay, we talked about this 2 seasons ago. How does everyone feel? And I love when we can give evolved responses to the same questions because we've actually took the moment to
Grow.
investigate, our ways of thinking and grow. So yeah, get you a podcast, a good one. But that's all the time that we have this week. This season of Surface Level is presented by Moby, Mobilizing Our Brothers Initiative. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.